Live from Lincoln and broadcasting across the state of Nebraska, it's the Average Joe Sports Show. This is the place for Husker sports with the biggest names, the best interviews, and all the inside scoops.
I got a front row seat with a big tub of buttered popcorn and a greasy half-live chicken leg.
Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Weekend edition is here with the Average Joe Sports Show. Chris Schmidt, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel. Mark Kranak is on assignment. When we say that, Kranak right now is probably digging the old bat bag out of the family truckster. He's hauling his easy chair. He may be, marking his territory in the third base box. Who knows? But Kranak, as a lot of us have gone through in our lifetime, is doing the travel ball thing. And his little guy, the 12U team, is in action this morning. So Kranak is not with us. We will corral him hopefully soon in the future. We do have a Brandon Vogel sighting. Excited to have Vogues back for the weekend edition. Vogues will check in here probably in about 10 minutes or so. The Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, will join us as well. Myriad of topics to tackle. Was a lot of fun last weekend with the weekend edition live at the Single Barrels. We got you through what we thought was going to happen with the Husker games. And, the NFL draft. This week has been a little more, reactionary, fellas. And give us a find and follow. Always subscribe. 7 days a week for you on the Average Joe Sports Show YouTube channel. Also, Twitter, AJ Sports Radio. Bill, good to be with you. Elijah, hope you're doing all right. Elijah, you got to kind of turn and burn, brother. You got ump duty here immediately after the show.
Yeah, I do. It wasn't supposed to be like this immediate, but things changed after I went to bed. I went to bed early last night.
I was in bed by 10.
I was in bed by 9:30.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Still 7 minutes late.
Good morning, Grandpa Joe's.
I am not sure the last time I was in bed by 9:30, but got home. I had a long day of umpiring yesterday. Didn't even shower before the show. We started yesterday. So I got home, showered when I got home from work, and I was in my pajama jams at like 7:30, ate some dinner, and was like, I'm just ready to go to bed. So I was out. Slept great though.
Wow. It's good, man.
It's back out to umpiring today. So weather's warming up. Postseason play gets kicked off next week. So we're rocking and rolling through a baseball season. And then it's summer ball before you know it.
Dolman, how did the grading go, my friend?
Well, there are a lot of F-bombs dropped, either audibly or on paper. So, no, all of my students are A students.
Do you ever get out the red pen and just circle something in a paper?
I wish everything is online, right? Okay. Yeah, everything is online, so it takes infinitely longer to grade it online than to just whip out the red pen and go to town. Yeah,
I envisioned Dolman sitting with Shaggy, his wonderful pup, in his domicile, just going Heisenberg here. That scene from Breaking Bad where Walter White's just losing it on people with the red pen, grading his chemistry assignments. Jesse Pinkman finding his paper, not even close, F.
I do have an assignment in which I don't teach them anything and then have them do it and then grade it. That's another story.
Worst paper I ever turned in, had probably the most red marks, was I was evaluating a book for a history class. The book was by Sheldon Stern. It's about like the Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I, during a moment of trying to cram in a paper, referred to Sheldon Stern throughout the paper a couple times as Howard Stern. So I got,
oh, wow,
rightfully a lot of red marks on that one.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, let's do a little grading on the portal, shall we, as we get things going. Husker baseball, tough one in extra innings. We'll get there as well. And, the two narratives this week were, what's Nebraska going to do with Marty Brown in the running back room? What's Nebraska going to do as things come to a tail end for an early high school commit in Trey Taylor. Nebraska going 1 for 2 this week with additions. Of course, Trey Taylor, the famous okey doke with Illinois, and I'm going to Nebraska. And, you know, Trey looks really, really talented just going into his junior season. But I ask you fellas, and we'll get into the stream, our starting 5 shout outs as well. Are you comfortable right now with Nebraska's running back situation? I think you look at the roster, and Nebraska also added the kicker we'll touch on. But there's the 2 choices you can have right now as a Nebraska fan going into this 2025 season. It's kind of, you know, blind faith that things are going to be okay. You could have had a complimentary piece in Marty Brown, or, oh no, Nebraska is really going to have to show it, to prove it to you, the Nebraska fan, that, all right, there is some depth and some talent in that running back room. And listen, I tend to err on the side. I take people at their word a lot of times, and if it doesn't work out, then that's my bad. But if the coaches tell me, this is just me, if the coaches tell me that they're good, it's not just to calm the waters. They know a hell of a lot more about football than me. And if they are good with what they've seen from Ives, as example, as your number 2, and they're confident in Mekhi Nelson, and it's not just lip service to keep a running back room healthy and happy, then I'm okay with it. Now, listen, you kick the tires on Marty Brown. That went down like this. Cal was the leader in the clubhouse. Cal gave Marty Brown 48 hours to commit. Cal was the big spender. After Cal's initial offer, you have Marty going to check out things with Miami and then Nebraska. Hey, this is what they're offering. What can you guys do? Nebraska hosted Marty with Dana and, of course, Matt Rule and EJ Barthel, and I think even Troy Dannon was a part of that thing. So Nebraska did what they needed to do. They liked what Marty Brown could provide. They loved what the production he had as a freshman at North Dakota State. Makes sense, right? Because he is a lot more proven, even at a lower football level, but a major power program than what you have behind Emmett Johnson. And then ultimately Miami came in. If you're neck and neck, and it sounds like Nebraska and Miami initially NIL-wise were even or same ballpark, then I think Miami turned it up just a little bit in the end. And you don't have Marty Brown, a Creighton Prep product. So, you know what? I think it'll be okay for Nebraska. Knocking on wood, if you're a big Red fan, that there's not injury issues and guys are being developed, because it's time for Nebraska to start showing some of that development that they talk about. So this will be a good opportunity to do it. You would love to have had Marty Brown, but if Nebraska chose to let it go, so be it, and show me that you're right this fall with your running back stable. Because, guys, they brought in 100 of running backs post-Pelini era, and you've just always kind of wondered about folks, why they didn't work out, why they didn't thrive.
If it makes sense for Nebraska to have put in the effort to get Marty Brown, it made more dollars for him to go to Miami. It's that simple, right? And in this era of NIL, can you imagine what your dorm, air quotes, looks like if you go to Miami now, right? I wonder if he made a trip to the Coral Gables campus.
I wonder if he saw the 7th floor of that one dorm building.
I mean, this is the highest bidder, and you know, in the NFL, you go where you get drafted, even if that's Cleveland. But in college, you can pick where you want to go anytime you want to go, and if the money's right, you're going to go there. And if it's kind of sexy to go down to Miami, the money's right. No state income tax. The Cal thing, you know, it was mystifying to me because they have this exodus through the exit door. What is it? 28, 30 players have left.
5 running backs
in the last. Okay. Yeah. So you got plenty of opportunity. What do you have in front of you there something's going on at Cal. The players are leaving, right? So where they came up with money, I don't know, because that is such a cash-strapped educational system. And you're not obviously going to go for the wins unless you got a great chance to win the ACC title from Berkeley. So that was all about the money. And somebody must have said, hey, by the way, you're going to probably lose at least 60% of that money in taxes, and you're not going to be very good. How about you look at Miami? Here's the campus right on the beach, and you can take your classes online. Here are your tutors. I mean, come on. To me, if he wasn't interested in Nebraska, I don't know. Just I would have been more surprised that he came to Nebraska than him going to Miami.
So you're not shocked at all?
No. Come on. I mean, and going back to what you said, and I've said it many times, that this is a developmental program. 6 weeks ago, people were reasonably okay with Nebraska's running backs room, right? Emmett Johnson's the one. They love Quentin Ives. Mekhi Nelson was somebody they were impressed with a year ago. Get Connor Booth healthy. You've got the running back Parker from St. Louis. Good stable of young backs. Nebraska's probably in a better situation with the running back room this year than it was last year. So we're good. Oh, wait a minute. There's somebody available? And yeah, he was from Omaha. That certainly helps. But man, when the bag arrives from Miami, come on.
Well, they're close to being a playoff team.
You have no loyalty to Nebraska.
It's also you have a guy who is going from likely a starting role at North Dakota State to, I mean, it's rare in the portal to see a guy go from a starting role to a backup role unless the money he's being paid makes it absolutely worth it. And you look at Cal, you had a starting opportunity there. You look at Miami, you have a chance to go in and compete for the starting job, where we all know Marty Brown wasn't going to come in and compete for the starting job at Nebraska. I think Emmett Johnson has been made some promises, rightfully so, based on his performance at the end of last season and at the end of the season before. Like, the coaches know what they have. Marty Brown was competing for a backup spot and rotational work in the running back room, where at Miami, you can go compete to be the lead dog. It's rare to see a guy go from starting to backup unless the money makes it really worth his time.
Well, that'd be really tough, too, to go run for almost 1,200 yards and then get a fraction of the carries.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that could possibly still happen at Miami, but at least you're being brought in with the expectation that you're going to compete for the starting job, where at Nebraska, the expectation was, hey, you got to compete with Quentin Ives to be the backup. And somewhere down the road, we hope you're going to be our starter, but there's more immediate opportunity at Miami, and I'm sure the money also made it worth his time as well.
Well, and I want to bring this point up. Rule said it during spring ball, and it was in reference to in-state recruiting, right? Look at Iowa State. Look at Iowa State having 6 Nebraska kids as part of their 2026 class already. Is it 26 or 27? I forget, but they're all over Omaha. And, you know, Coach Campbell's done a good job of kind of picking and choosing. And Iowa State's done a good job in the NFL draft recently. All that being said,
Iowa State's a good bet, isn't it?
Pardon me?
I said Iowa State's a good bet, isn't it?
Could be. But Rule said it's one thing. It's hard to go get an in-state kid, and then it's even a harder situation when they're not happy here. I mean, think about if you were to land a Marty Brown and then just for whatever reason he's not getting the touches here, that kind of explodes the situation even more if you got a local kid that's here that isn't playing, Bill and Elijah. And that's not always been the case, but it's been a thing that you've probably had to deal with recently. And every staff that's been here has had to deal with when you go get a local kid and they're not playing. So there's that. Brandon Vogel with Cowder Reed will check in, get his take on things. Let's get our starting 5 shout-outs this morning here on the weekend edition of the Average Joe Sports Show. The other Dave is here. Good to have you. Brian Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Not happy with the pitch sequence last night for old Broderick, as that was a tough outing for Nebraska's bullpen. Jake, all the way in from Ohio. Jake, thank you. Uncle Larry is in. Jeff Snitley, the other part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, checking in. Coach Brandon is here. NASCAR Eric saying, what's up? Justin checking in. Steven, how are you, sir? Good to have you. Black Hills Brennan, all the way from Spearfish Country Club. Spearfish Kid in South Dakota. The Black Hills are incredible. Bruce and Spearfish. I don't know if Black Hills Brennan and Bruce from Spearfish are having coffee or maybe just a morning shot. We'll see. Kobe is in. Tuck says $20 to the first average Joe who uses a word today that Clausburn used. Tuck's betting on Doleman to use it. Puffins is here. James says it's Saturday already. Nolan says, morning, fellas. Good to be with you, Nolan. More of your comments. Another Steve is in. Steve, good to have you. Mississippi Queen says, morning. And Ryan is here all the way from Virginia. Captain, good to have you, dude. Captain already peppering questions. Game Dog is here. And we'll get more of your comments coming up here on the Average Joe Sports Show Weekend Edition. And Kranak on assignment. David also checking in, saying what's up. So that's the Marty Brown thoughts this morning.
Can you imagine what in this era of college sports, what a recruiting trip to Miami is like now? I mean, go watch.
What was it like? What was it like in the 90s? Because Bill, you talked to guys, and I remember Jason Peter kind of briefly describing his recruiting trip to Miami once upon a time in the studio Elijah's in. And he just said the beaches were nice.
Yeah, I had a
ding, Jake.
I had a colleague of mine that I did some games with for a couple of years, fairly prominent running back actually, and he made his recruiting trip to Miami, and they took him straight to South Beach, and it was party central, and he said, when are we going to get a chance to go to the campus and meet some professors? And they said, we don't do that on these trips. Yes, and
mommy and daddy come with you.
He was very academically inclined and is a very successful businessman out in Los Angeles, and went to a high-profile institution and played for a couple of teams in the NFL for a few years. So he wasn't just any other running back. But yeah, he said he went on his recruiting trip there and never made it to campus. And I'm guessing now the campus buildings where they bring recruits probably have a lot of neon on the outside and a very good internet connection in case they want to check in on their online classes. But
maybe a velvet rope.
Yeah. Just this era of college football is sad and comical at the same time,
Well, it's funny because we were talking to Coach Barnett Thursday, and we were talking to him a little bit about Belichick, but the other story that he was wowed by, but there was a little sadness to his voice, was the fact that Texas is going to spend $40 million on their roster. And he's like, well, institutions continue to let the athletic department rule the roost or spend that much money. You looked at some of the budget numbers that came out. Nebraska was plus $7 million when it came to revenue and spending, which good on Nebraska. And the other side of it, Brandon Vogel joins us here, is teams right now, while they can, are going to spend what they can. And if that means Ohio State's going to drop an additional several million to go win a title, Texas is going to drop $40 million on next year's roster. There's got to be some common sense. And I'm all free market guy. If you want to spend it to make it to win, go for it. But you are limiting your competitors right now with the playing field. And you can't play yourself, and there may be about 4 or 5 teams that are in your area code. Vogues, we've got a wide-ranging discussion this morning between Marty Brown. We'll get to Trey Taylor. A recruiting trip to Miami, what it's like now versus what it was like during the Jimmy Johnson era.
What? It might be it might be exactly the same, to be honest with you. Yeah. It's just a little more overt. And here's what we got for you. Here's the pamphlet.
I always envisioned it being like, an episode of Miami Vice where Crockett and Tubbs would show up in a Ferrari. And you're at your back room table with loud music and beautiful people, which doesn't work. Vogues, would you have taken a recruiting trip to Miami?
I mean, yeah, I probably would have taken a recruiting trip there if it would have been one of those. It's like I've got 4 official visits I actually want to go on, and I've got 5 that's just going to be like, let's see what we can see. Miami's good. Miami's one of the leaders in the clubhouse there. Arizona State probably would have been in that class. But yeah, I don't think were I anywhere near that good of an athlete to even go on those trips. Like I don't imagine that Miami would have been high on my list.
Bill, did you visit Pepperdine, or is it Malibu or Pacific? I'm thinking.
It was Pepperdine. No.
Oh.
But I got in, but yeah.
You want to do?
Yeah, I wanted to. Yeah. I would have gone. Yeah.
I didn't take any academic recruiting visits. Like I didn't visit campuses. I was just, my parents and I were in agreement. Hey, whatever school you can go to for cheapest, that's where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out UNO.
Would you had it to do over again, Elijah? And you love Nebraska. I know you're proud of being able to go there and thriving as well as you did. Would you have looked at Ole Miss at all?
Nah, not really.
You just go for the visit.
I'm glad to have friends that went there. I'll say that. I had a good time down there. I wouldn't have attended school down there, not just for the money, but because it's so far from home, and I don't know. No, I was pretty locked in on Nebraska. I got to go there for cheap, so free.
My late father's was surprised I got into Nebraska, but I did. So love your old Nebraska you. All right. Vogues, comfort level 1 to 10, 10 being your feet are up and you're smoking a pipe. 1, you're reaching for the McCormick's vodka. Where are you at with Nebraska's running back situation?
6.8, I would say. Like you've got one guy, which is the issue. Like if you deal with an injury or two, which you're probably going to, hopefully nothing long term, but a guy's, knocked out for a game for 6 quarters, a game or 2, whatever it may be. Like other than Emmett Johnson, we don't know a whole lot about the rest of the group. And, my kind of default setting is like, it's cause for concern for someone like me who doesn't see those guys. But you got to kind of walk the line of if the coaches who see every practice rep they've taken at Nebraska are like, yeah, we feel like we're good. I try to at least give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. That's the 0.8. Otherwise, I'd be at 6. I think they're probably at about a 7 or an 8. So I try to give them a little bit of leeway.
Trey Taylor, where are you at with his upside? What'd you think of the ceremony? Was an apology necessary?
No, I mean the guy's a sophomore in high school. I think you can expect them to make some decisions that maybe they wouldn't even make 2 years later, which is kind of the big thing here. Like it's good for Nebraska to have identified a quarterback, to have gotten the quarterback in this far out. It's always a question of like, can you make it stick? And he's class of 2027. When you look at kind of the lineup of who Nebraska has at quarterback now, it'll inevitably change in the years ahead. Like we're talking about a guy who's going to be on the field like 2029, maybe at the earliest. So it's a ways away, but I think it's always important to get a quarterback in the class, no matter how far out it is, because they become kind of the centerpiece and the thing that you address other needs based on.
Brandon Vogel with us from counterread.com.
Think about that. 2029. You know, how do you think Brandon Hill's going to perform in that third game of the season against Alcorn State? Because by then he should have been able to adapt to, playing his first college game. You prove between your first but when they take on Alcorn or Houston Christian in that renewal of the rivalry game, 4 years from now, the kid that we're talking about who helped Nebraska win the cycle. That's what happened. Nebraska won the off-season post-spring recruiting cycle for this week.
Yeah,
and this week, some other quarterback from the class of 28 is going to make a commitment to somewhere else, and who knows how binding or how committed these guys really are when that Happy Meal greets them in the hallway someday, right? But 2029 is probably when he becomes what we're talking about with Dylan Raiola going into his sophomore season at Nebraska. That's where Trey Taylor is at this point.
Want to go back to a comment from Brandon, and Brandon's like, so as a Husker fan for years, Chris, the coaches are okay with the running back room. The media is not. That means it's not an issue come fall. It's just okay. I think you've got a little bit different, and we had some comments too. Game Dogs right on with, the Jeff Sims was supposed to be really high level. So there are phenomenal examples here in the stream of standing pat and it not going well. I get it. I absolutely get it. But I think from because what we hear from Dana Holgerson, right? Dana came out on the offensive line during, what was it, their bowl practices or just shortly thereafter. And not only did he say we got to get some dudes, but the way he said we got to get some dudes on the offensive line. Okay, we remember that soundbite, and Dana's blunt, honest. And what Nebraska do? They go get Pritchett, they go get Rocco, and away you go. So Nebraska kind of followed suit there. If they were panicked with Dana in charge, I honestly think they would have made it happen for Marty Brown or somebody else, because I think he's a pretty good evaluator, and he's quite honestly probably pretty demanding with, all right, you brought me in. I know you're paying me a ton of money. I get to just coach ball, but Dana's going to do it his way and demand that he has autonomy. If that means more portal guys based on the talent assessment he's seeing, then he's going to go shopping. And so if he is going to stand up and tell us about Ives getting ready and kind of making a transition because of some of the bowl practices, that's your number two that he's fine. He's comfortable with. He's dependable. Those are his words. And there's a lot of lip service that can come from staff, but I don't put Dana in that category, Vogues, as someone just kind of sugarcoating things.
No, I don't think so. And great job by the commenters so far this morning, because I think those two examples are a good encapsulation of kind of the gray area you have to occupy here. I just said in my first answer, like, I'm willing to give the coaches a little bit of benefit of the doubt because they see these running backs way more than I have. But the Jeff Sims example is also a good one, because that was one where they're like, no, this is our guy. This is the guy who can do what we need. And it didn't go well that year. So, it's always kind of to balance things there of like how much skepticism is healthy and how much is too much. In terms of Dana, he's one of those coaches where you maybe have to deal with a little bit less gray area, because he generally will tell you what you think.
Folks, do you have a bird sound effect machine in the football office, or the window's just open in beautiful Tennessee?
The birds are
I have the windows open, which I pretty much have to do this time of year. It's kind of becoming this comes up often on a weekday appearance that I do as well. It's kind of becoming my signature, I think. Natural sounds.
Vogt is in the jungle again.
I find it quite comforting, honestly. We're sitting here in Husker football. Everyone's stressed about the running back room. Here's the birds chirping to calm us all down, comfort us.
I think it's kind of nice, but since it gets mentioned so often, now I'm getting a little self-conscious. I'm wondering if somebody will just tell me, be like, "Look, you gotta close that window for 20 minutes, man." Which I'll do.
Please keep it open.
No, I like it. I like it. Black Hills Brennan says, sounds like a Masters broadcast. I hear the birds. Love it. I'm interested. We'll get into the defensive line because that is also, probably your position of concern. What about kicker? I mean, that's the addition this week. And Nebraska has, and I think, Elijah, you put it best this week, brother, that somebody's probably gone out of the kicker room to the portal. You just made an addition. Coonan is somebody that, and maybe you know this, Vogues. Why did he only appear in 3 games at Cal? Did he get hurt?
I don't know offhand, and haven't gotten the chance to dig into it much yet. I mean, I think he probably was he was a freshman kicker, right? His 1 year at Cal, and then a sophomore at Charlotte, where he was the backup. I think he was probably just had more experienced guys above him in both spots, but went 5 for 5 at Charlotte on field goal attempts and extra point attempts. So got a little bit of work, and last kicker Nebraska got from Charlotte wasn't too bad. So it's one of those, I think, pure upside plays. You got a guy who's played now FBS football for 2 different teams, and Nebraska needed. I mean, he comes in with really almost as much experience as Nebraska has on the roster at that spot.
I just want to know if he can punt and provide some depth if needed in case something bad happens. Doesn't typically happen to your punter, but if you're going to have him running around, then maybe that's a possibility. But in the roster era, maybe you got to have somebody who can do a couple different things, just like you got to have somebody who can play a couple of positions on the offensive line. I don't know. That's my question as to bringing in a kicker after spring. Mm-hmm. And that obviously says something about who you have already in camp.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, I said this sort of jokingly, but not really, or I wrote this earlier this week, like that punter addition, now that we know that Nebraska is looking for a rugby style punter, it's probably going to be one of the biggest additions they make over this summer period, because I don't expect them. I mean, you can still bring in transfers, the portal's closed, but anybody who's in there, you can go get if you want them. I don't expect Nebraska to be that active there, but they need the punter that Mike Eckler wants. And I don't know. Sometimes it feels like you just call up Pro Kick Australia and order one, like, with the way that works. But we'll see. I mean, it's something Nebraska has to have.
Is that an app?
Probably. If it's not ready, it's probably in beta testing.
Mail order punters.
There's lots of things you can get from Australia. Fosters, koalas, bobbies.
There's been a lot of conversation within the last couple months about bringing manufacturing back to America. Can we bring punting back to America, punting development back to America? Like, that's where things should start. That's where my political issues lie.
It's pretty fascinating. I was just wrote like one column on the rugby punting thing, and I was like, man, there's like an entire book here of just like where this came from, how it started, how it works. It's pretty fascinating, I think, when you actually stop and look at it.
Snitley lays down the law here, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, with Coonan's path here. The sophomore at Charlotte, 3 games. So we could enter the portal, gotcha, and then have that extra year, and then went to Cal, and they didn't have his major. So
Probably sports media and communications.
And
possibly.
And they say people don't come in this modern era of football to play school anymore. Look at a guy playing school there. They didn't have his major and he leaves. Good on him.
Right. So I'm gonna be blown away if Coonan's major's horticulture and then Cal didn't have his major.
I mean, Cal's a pretty big school, obviously well known. I'm guessing they cover most degrees, but
probably not ag econ or
true.
ag journalism or something.
Oh yeah, it's construction management. That's right. The Sioux wing of the academic function.
And I have some friends that UNL, great construction management school, had some friends who made it through there. Does not surprise me that Cal does not have construction management. Not surprised in the slightest.
No,
those uppity academics out there. Ugh.
So I got a question here on Trey Taylor, Vogues. You think there's a shot that he may reclassify for 2026? If you're Nebraska, do you have that talk with him?
I mean, I guess it's always possible. I don't know if, again, it's so far out, but if you're Nebraska, you got Dayton Raiola coming in 26. Like, it seems like it's just complicating factor to stack two quarterbacks in a class, one of who's going to be, sure, he can reclassify and be there. I think it was Syracuse. Syracuse has a 16-year-old practicing this spring. Like, reclassified, was young for his age anyway. And like, it gets a little bit crazy when you stop and think about it. So I think for a quarterback, and it's never going to work out the way you have it drawn out on paper, but I still think you got to draw it out on paper of like, we get one a year. You're going to lose one somewhere along the way. But hopefully, that just gives you the spacing you need to not be in a spot where Nebraska was last year, frankly, where you had three guys who really hadn't played much at all. I mean, Harburg had played more, but you're trying to avoid that if at all possible.
It's delicate, man, that quarterback spacing. Can you be the program that is so good at developing quarterbacks and also you have a monster will pay you to stay set up with your collective that you can be Arch Manning for 2 years and just practice and get better with, all right, dude, here, this is your year. Because the difference is going to be being right, like what Ohio State did with Will, taking him from K-State. Will having to be on his game with Adrian going down to Manhattan, that part of his quarterback journey. And I look at Ohio State's current room where they've got Sayan and they keep bringing in studs. Can you be patient, but also be good and then just make it happen when you have that window of opportunity? Okay, the guy in front of me, whether he went portal or he was, a high school kid that came in and played well, he's here, he's gone. Wonderful. Now it's my turn, and if I don't win the job, I'm going to get passed over and go somewhere else. I mean, the programs that are able to help a guy stick and stay because he likes his situation, even though he didn't win the job, are going to be the ones that emerge. Or you just hit on a young guy that's really, really good as a redshirt freshman.
Well, you hit on a young guy, or you hit in the portal. I mean, I think there's just so many things that can go wrong. So, like, first, the patience part of it from a player perspective. A guy like Brooke Behringer stood out in a totally different era because he was very good and was willing to wait, and the way things broke ended up providing an essential function for Nebraska national title teams. But if you say he had wanted to leave, like, well, you got to sit out a year, like there's no NIL piece of it. Now, the example that comes to mind for me is Miller Moss at USC. He waited behind Caleb Williams, and he was with Lincoln Riley, guy who just wins quarterbacks Heisman trophies. No matter what else those teams do. Got benched, left, did he go to Louisville? I think he went to Louisville, where he's probably going to
there with Brom.
Yeah, Brom's going to turn him into an NFL draft pick. I mean, maybe he was going to be an NFL draft pick anyway, but like, you just look what he just did with Tyler Shaw. So, yeah, it's not only do you need the player that's like, yep, I'm going to wait my turn. This is where I want to be. Things are good, but you also have to fight. If these guys go in the portal, the market for quarterbacks, as we currently know it, is usually crazy. So there's just even more of an incentive to at least like kick the tires and look around. It's tough. I think you're like where Nebraska on paper sets up now, where you're like Dylan Royal is a starter as a true freshman, and you hope you have him for at least 3 years, is kind of going to be most of college football, because it's going to just be tough to keep the guys behind them and keep that kind of classic succession plan that we all have in our heads.
But look at the money is going to really start to separate teams, right? You mentioned what Texas is got $40 million. Well, what about the $20.5 million settlement if that ever goes through? Again, that's just one piece of the pie. But at some point, if you're investing all this money, and look, I don't know what Dylan Raiola is officially making, but it's north of 2 and probably around 3. But if you have Nico Iamaleava wanting $4 million because that's what the market is, and the dude that went to Miami and is getting 4. Okay, I don't know what Trey Taylor is asking or getting now. Is there a contract? I mean, there was a talk that Iamaleava was playing at the end of a high school contract, right? That he signed like 4 years ago, and he had one more year to go on it. So this kid at Syracuse who's 16, is he under a high school contract that you can sign to be at Syracuse for X number of years? And then when he is a sophomore and his contract runs out, speaking of Iamaleava, okay, it's $4 million. Is it going to be 5? And then is it going to be 6? And at what point do some schools say, we're just not going to play this game anymore? You know, even I'm telling you, even in Nebraska, which has its own private athletic department corporation. We all know Nebraska doesn't take public funds in its athletic department, which is unusual. I think there's only 9 maybe in the country that do that. But at some point, even Nebraska is going to have to say, we cannot continue to spend like Texas, Ohio State, probably Notre Dame, USC are willing to spend, Oregon, of course. So at what point do some teams say, look, we enjoyed this poker game, but we're not all in like we were, and the 64 is pared down to 32 who do want to play? But you can spend, what's the market for quarterback? Offensive linemen are going to go, you want to protect that guy? Then pay me too.
And to your point, Bill, I wouldn't be surprised if Nebraska is paying Trey Taylor while he's still in high school. You look at the other guys recruitment. I would not be surprised at all if Trey Taylor's getting a monthly check from Nebraska saying, hey, thanks for committing. We'll see you soon. Here's an advance.
God, if Junior would have just worked on his slider.
It seems to me that's the only way that you're going to make sure that commitment is solid for the next year and a half while he decides how many prom dates he's going to have. You know, okay, I won't do the hat dance with anybody else anymore because I and my people have my name on a contract. So my commitment is now binding, right?
That's about all you can do.
Yeah, I mean, the introduction of big time money to college football, at least in this way, I mean, there's always been big time money around it. I think clearly illustrates for me 2 things. You need transparency, and you need a set of rules that everybody's playing with. And until we get that, it's just going to be this, where everyone feels like they're staring at mayhem constantly.
Vogues, tell us about Count a Read, what you and Aaron Sorensen are doing, and how folks can subscribe, bud.
Yeah, head to counterread.com. It's a twice weekly newsletter on Substack, which if you haven't been on Substack, or if you are on Substack, get over there and check us out. Like, a really great platform. I'm not paid to say that. I just really, really enjoy it. So you can get signed up for free. That gets you our 2 free newsletters. Subscribers also get 2 exclusive newsletters a week. Going to start digging into some of my bigger off-season projects in terms of looking at some of the teams on the schedule, breaking things down that way. And there's always plenty of things to dig into in the off season. I kind of enjoy this time.
All right, Vogues, we appreciate you, bud. We'll holler next week. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Good to have Brandon Vogel. The Iron Horse back at it. Giving the old outlaw Josie Wales stare down. I don't know if that's.
I was looking at something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sharpie, how are you, bud?
Good. How you guys doing? Happy
Good,
Kentucky Derby Day. Great weekend
Yes.
of sports. Welcome to May.
It is that a bucket list item for you? If you have the opportunity, will you go someday to the Derby?
Oh, I would, but only if I was in the infield.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think
Vogue's spent a week, one day in the infield.
Yeah, I've heard him tell the story. I don't think I'm proper enough to be up with the bougies. Like I prefer the jorts and the the sleeveless shirt compared to the nice 3-piece suit. I just feel like those are more my people.
Well, you're excellent at you and my wife are wonderful at people watching as well. And the infield is quality people watching.
It is the infield that makes the Kentucky Derby. It is not the hats, the mint juleps that cost you $22 in a glass that you're going to lose. It is the people in the infield that, especially on a day where you're going, his mother was a mutter, his father was a mutter. Those are the people that make Churchill Downs, and God bless them.
Yeah, I got a buddy Jacob who I think he's now in his 4th consecutive year of going out in the infield of the Derby.
Oh wow!
It just has a fantastic time. It was supposed to be like a one-time trip, and then they made it out there and went, "We're coming back every single year." So he is back out there yet again. I've asked him to send some pictures from the infield. I know it was a mud fest a couple of years ago in the infield, and that was horrible. But every other year he's had a great time.
Do people in the infield know that there are horse races going on?
Oh, they have big screens and loudspeakers and everything.
You get to watch it depending on where you're posted up.
Isn't that also where the porta potty races started? Where you run across the top of the porta potties?
Yes, I remember that.
I think that started in the Kentucky Derby.
All right. Game Dog says he went in 2011. Killer time. It's a party on the planet. My buddy Uncle Nate went back in 2014. And our old buddy, the mayor of the rail yard, Shively, we checked in with yesterday. He was there and was at the Kentucky Oaks race. So no, I gotta do that. I gotta go with Iowa Russ. Every year he throws the Derby party, and it's just awesome on his patio, on his deck, I should say.
Now, I have been to Churchill Downs to watch races, but it was nowhere near the Kentucky Derby. It is an impressive place. I mean, it's a mammoth place. What is pretty cool is it is right next to Louisville.
Yeah.
Like you walk outside of whatever they call their football stadium now, there is Churchill Downs. It's pretty cool. Like Freedom Hall. Like you walk out the back of Freedom Hall, and right there is Churchill Downs.
And not far from there is the Cardinal Inn with a velvet roped off room where Rick Pitino went to work.
The Cardinal Inn.
And I've been there too.
I thought it was an Italian restaurant.
Well, as you can see, he does his best work in the portal, so it doesn't matter where he's at, Elijah.
No,
Yes.
that's so good. Sharpie, news and notes, my friend, with Husker football. We beat up the Marty Brown and Trey Taylor topics a little bit, and the trust level. Are you curious about the running back room, or are you okay to take the coach's word that it'll be okay? I mean, it would have been a nice addition, but they didn't end up countering what Miami proposed.
Well, yes, but they were an uphill battle from the start because there was a general feeling of you didn't recruit us the first time, and now all of a sudden you want to get in on this. And Rule had nothing to do with it. Rule wasn't here when Marty Brown was in high school at Creighton Prep. So Nebraska made it a want. It just they had some things that were working against him, but that's become an Omaha thing, and at some point they're going to overcome that. Nebraska will, but Rule made it a want to add to that room. You're right. You have to trust Rule that the guy that he really likes is Quentin Ives. I think our whole vibe on the room changes if Jamarian Parker was healthy this spring.
Okay, good.
If he was on the field and you at least felt like he was moving his way to number 3 on the depth chart, I think you would feel different. That's why it's big for him to have a key fall camp. You know, he spent more time on the fat kid injured bike than he did on the field. And you can't have that because he's the kind of running back where you can be a game changer. And, you know, he has to have a good off season. But I think if he lives up to what they believe he will be, I think they feel comfortable about that room. But let's also, you know, we don't feel comfortable about the room because we don't know if Emmett Johnson can make it through 12 games.
Right.
And Nebraska has shown that they use 2 to 3 running backs, unlike Miami that says, yeah, we'll use 5. So it's important for Ives to make the next step. But I think there's a gap, and you guys have all covered Nebraska football for the longest time. I think I've not seen a bigger gap from what the media and the fans feel about a particular position group room compared to the coaches. Because if the coaches were panicked, they would have been aggressive in the winter portal. If Marty Brown is not from Omaha, Nebraska, guys, are they pursuing him? Probably so not. They're telling you they like the running back room where we're all going, uh-oh, we've seen this dog and pony show before.
Yeah, and it's delicate, isn't it, with the narrative, the reality, and also the vicinity. I mean, those are all parts of this conversation.
Gary, do you see panic in the kicker room considering they're going after a guy in spring? What's the lowdown there from what you're hearing?
So this actually, they got really interested over the weekend. And I think it's a little thing. One, competition. I think Nebraska feels like they're going to play in a lot of close games this upcoming year. And they feel in two sides of the ball, they fixed those things that prevented them from winning close games, but they don't want to let special teams impact them again. And you don't know about John Hull. Tristan Alvano had a good spring, and we didn't expect him to kick, but I don't know that there's 100% faith in Tristan Alvano going through a whole season and being consistent what they need. Fortunately, Nebraska, John Hull hit 9 of his last 10 field goals after things settled down. I think they're looking for competition with the addition of Cunanan. I also think they're looking for somebody to be strong in kickoffs. You know, Hull only had 5 touchbacks and 17 kickoffs. Cunanan is a little bit more consistent. So I think it's the whole part of the spring that you saw past Saturday is everything is based on competition. Competition among yourselves, competition that we're going to add pieces to the room. You always have to stay on point. So it is kind of interesting that they add a place kicker, but I think this is Mike Eckler saying, I need to feel confident. We can't be in a situation where we go down with 2 kickers who might be injury prone and we're screwed. And we've got a 340-pound offensive tackle who was a straight-on kicker in high school is now our 3rd kicker on a limited roster.
Yeah, you got to throw hope out the window, and you got to know.
Look, this goes also back to what I've said about the timing of Holgerson coming on staff and Butler having been around as well for a year, right? You're not bringing on somebody in those 2 positions after the season is over with. You go through a hiring process and you bring them on board sometime in January or February, and then you go into spring ball and they get to know who their personnel is. Holgerson got a huge head start. Nebraska got a huge head start with him. Butler's been around for a year, knows the personnel on that side of the ball all the way through. He had his secondary guys, but he knew who was up front, knew the linebackers, knew the depth. They knew what they had going into spring. Mm-hmm. Mike Eckler comes in, right, late in the game. He's getting to know his kickers and all the other personnel on special teams through spring ball. And now he's evaluating what he had at the end of spring ball. Holgerson and Butler knew everything going in. So Eckler says, okay, I've seen what we have. I've seen the kind of depth we have. We need more people. And we got to go find, as they all want to find in kicking, somebody with a big leg.
They refer to him as a ball striker. He is a solid ball striker. Where have you heard that? Where have you heard that before when you were 20, Schmidt?
Yeah, the room behind me.
Nice. You still got it.
Oh,
oh. And now we're back to what Clausburn said yesterday.
Yes. Oh yeah.
What did I do to get?
How about them Bears? Huh?
Hey, how about Chicago? Hey, can we do this real quick here? Because I know you guys have talked about Trey Taylor. I was trying to make a list the other day because it's great that Nebraska's back into Chicago because it makes perfect sense. You know, people say that Chicago is the gateway to Lincoln. They do. And Des Moines is like halfway, and Omaha is like you're almost to Lincoln. So why not go to Chicago? It's a quick flight. It's a quick drive. And Nebraska used to have success in Chicago because they had people on their staff that had connections, whether it be Charlie McBride to Bill Callahan. The best players that have come from Chicago that have played at Nebraska. I'll give you Johnny Mitchell to start. I'm not saying he's number one, but you could make a case. So Johnny Mitchell would be my first one to throw out there.
Nate Turner's
there. How about Joe Gans?
Yes, he would be. Joe Gans might even be top 3.
Mike Murray.
Who?
Mike Murray. The snake handling middle guard of about 5'8" and 225.
He was a little fire hydrant. Jordan Westerkamp.
Nice. Yeah.
How about him? Yeah.
Mikhail Wilbon, you remember him?
Yeah.
You remember him.
Alante Brown, the former the Michigan State Spartan.
Yeah. The old helmet spearer.
Another one, linebacker.
Well,
really,
does Rockford count with Carlos Polk?
Yeah, Rockford counts.
Elijah has alienated all people from Chicago, claiming Rockford. Yes, we'll give it that.
I know Illinois guys. I had friends in college, 2 of them that were from Rockford, and they said they were from the Chicago area. So I'm
yeah. I know that doesn't. Schomburg and Joliet tried that too, and that doesn't work.
Okay, I'll give you another one. You ready? What about Ed Stewart?
Yeah, because was he from Carmel High School?
Yeah.
And what could have been with Donovan McNabb?
Yes. Well, Donovan McNabb, so he never did like the swerve from Nebraska like Emmitt Smith, right?
No, I think he got told hell no by our favorite basketball coach. Yeah, because I think Charlie told this story about how Donovan's set to go to Nebraska. And I'll be honest, dude. Like, I loved watching those Syracuse option teams with Donovan McNabb and Marvin Graves. They were a ton of fun. And then you've got this fella named Donovan that's out of the Chicago Catholic League, and Charlie has got him locked in, and it's all going to happen because he wanted to play both. That's why he went to Syracuse. He never ended up playing beyond his freshman year, I don't think, for Boeheim at Syracuse. But Danny, and I love Danny Nee, but Danny shut that SOB down right away. He's like, hey, nope, you're not doing one or the other. And you can hear in Charlie's voice still to this day a little annoyance that but think about your quarterback room. I mean, you would have had Tommy Frazier, then you have Donovan McNabb, and then of course Frost was from Stanford to Nebraska, and then by the way, they bring in a guy like Eric Crouch that is an eventual Heisman winner that's redshirting during that 97 season. So I mean, we're talking about keeping quarterbacks in the portal era. I mean, Nebraska just freaking had an incredible hand of quarterbacks.
Yeah,
so from 92 on.
So what was McNabb's first year at Syracuse? I think was 94 because he redshirted.
95.
His first year was 94, 95. So what if Donovan McNabb commits to Nebraska? Do we never have a Scott Frost?
Well, you don't have a Scott Frost probably at quarterback.
You think he still would have transferred back?
I don't know.
If you wanted to play quarter, I don't think.
I think
he might have transferred. I don't think he'd
back
back to Nebraska.
So as we're playing the Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation game, the no from Danny opened the door for Scott to come back.
Boom.
Huh?
That's true. And well, okay. So you could go even back a little bit further, because I wasn't I wasn't into Nebraska football when Emmitt Smith did the old okie dokie on Nebraska.
Yeah, the red jumpsuit.
Where he told everybody that the day of signing day, that whatever color he was wearing, that's the school he was going to. And he wore red the entire day. And all of his buddies were like, yep, he's going to Nebraska. And then all of a sudden picked Florida.
So did he wear a red jumpsuit, put on a Nebraska hat, toss it aside, say, just kidding?
I don't, you know what? I don't
jumpsuit for the Florida gear.
God, I think Jack Pierce tells the story of the day. I think like he wore red all day and I don't know, came out behind a curtain or something and had a Florida hat on. Like Nebraska thought they had him. Like Emmitt Smith was coming to Nebraska.
The story that Jack told me, and I miss Jack. I love Jack Pierce. Late great Jack Pierce, and Jack may have told my dad this story and then reiterated it to me. But you go to Shout Out Saturday here. You go to Hy-Vee and you get the grocery bag, right? With the handles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that may have been filled with currency.
Hey, and Schmidt and Elijah being on the show and Bill, we all got to know Jack really, really well.
Yeah.
There were, and you know how recruiting has changed so much. The stories that were told from the Turner Gill recruiting between Nebraska and Oklahoma to all the stories that Jack told of recruiting in New Orleans, man, I miss those days because when you could cheat and Nebraska was right there cheating with everybody else. Those were some fantastic stories that we just don't get anymore. Like you're not going to have a story. Like I do kind of now, like the most recent story, I want to know when Addison Williams and John Butler go to Orlando the other day to visit CJ Brownell, who earlier in the week got a visit from Tony White and Evan Cooper. What in Addison Williams' mind, and I'm not saying this is wrong, I think this is a baller move, says, you know what? Hey, Coach Butler, you got a Nebraska polo on. I'm going to wear a Nebraska baseball jersey. I have never seen a assistant coach wear a baseball jersey to visit some prospect in home. But Addison Williams the other night in Orlando, next to one of the fastest players in the state of Florida that committed to Nebraska way back in November, is wearing a baseball jersey. That's a story that I want to know because that was a baller move.
It's pretty good.
But he didn't walk in with he could have walked in with a bag full of money in a McDonald's sack, and they would have like, oh, that's normal these days.
Yeah. The jersey stands out.
But and you look at this. This might be a trend, guys. Trey Taylor opens up his jacket, and he's got a baseball jersey on. Remember when Buki wore Adidas made a baseball jersey especially for Buki.
Mm-hmm. That guy has had a charmed life with his 5-star ascension. Because of the recruiting pedigree, got to start for 2 years, and good dude. Like he did an interview with me, and you wish him well, but the guy just was allergic to tackling. Was a great cover guy in 7-on-7, but you want to get Dean Blevins pissed off. You say Buki and 1-on-1 in the hole, and
not to throw too much of a straight. Do you remember what Oklahoma fans nicknamed him? Dookie.
That's horrible.
Isn't he
He's assistant coach somewhere.
Yeah.
GA or something. He might be at Washington. Does that sound right? Because that's where he transferred to. I don't know.
I have no idea.
You jogged the memory on New Orleans, and
he is a defensive analyst at USC.
Okay, so that's a
win.
Which makes me feel old because we were in the same recruiting class. I was a 0-star and got no offers. But same recruiting class.
No baseball jersey. The story of New Orleans that was the funniest one Jack told of Tom and Jack they land in New Orleans, and Tom's the rental car place had a couple of choices. One was, this Griswold looking piece of crap station wagon that was cheaper. And then you had a new Cadillac Eldorado. And Tom's like, well, we're going to take the station wagon. It's cheaper, better fuel. And Jack's like, dude, you can't go to the hood in a station wagon. We got to roll in a Cadillac, coach. So one of the places they went through, Tom stepped through. They're going up to a recruit's house. And, Jack's like, be careful. They're in the 8th Ward. And Tom steps through like 3 steps. And the second step he steps through, because it's just shattered wood. It's just destroyed wood.
Yeah.
And cuts himself on like a rusty nail. So he's in the living room, like freaking calf is bleeding crazily, and he's talking. And the clincher for, I think, Neil Smith, and I got to get Neil to confirm this, but Jack sent flowers like every month to Neil's mom. Whole bunch of roses, but Jack would sign it Tom Osborne. So there's like there's a line as long as last Saturday's equipment room of grandmas and sisters and cousins and moms from the neighborhood, all there to just give Tio a big hug because of how well he treated Neil's mama. He shows up for the final visit. Signed Tom Osborne.
Hey, Coach Osborne, his recruiting effect. Now the late Calvin Jones. Calvin was raised by his grandparents in North Omaha, and they love Nebraska football. But Calvin wasn't like he was not 100% Nebraska, and Coach Osborne came to make a home visit in North Omaha, and they lived in a smaller house, but the entryway was like only 6 foot tall, like 6'2", 6'3" tall. Yeah. And Calvin tells the story of that when Coach Osborne made his first home visit, he walked in and he had to duck his head to come into the entryway. But then when he popped his head up into the room, when his grandma saw him, she was like, "You are going to Nebraska." Like Calvin said the story of that's like the second coming of God that she saw in her household. She was a very religious woman. There is Tom Osborne. And once he ducked his head, popped his head up, she said, "You're going to Nebraska."
It's pretty awesome. That's pretty good. I love the recruiting stories, man. Those are good.
And I know maybe coaches don't share them as they have them, but they don't share them. Like, you remember, there was an offensive lineman from the state of Illinois that I remember Bo saying he spent like 9 hours at his house. He did come here. He transferred away. He was a tackle. He got hurt. But Bo said, I spent 9 hours in his house. Like, we had lunch and we had dinner. And I'm like, who in the hell spends 9 hours in somebody's house trying to recruit a kid?
Well, I heard a great story.
Matt, I think his last name was Farron.
Okay, was it Farron Finnan? Does that sound right?
Matt Finnan?
Yeah. Because there's a couple kids that got out of Wheaton, right? Illinois, during that era.
I heard a great story. I don't know the name. It was a guy that did not end up coming to Nebraska. And it's great that this is off the air, so I'll tell the story. Where Bo flies down south, him and I think it was him and Carl. So I think it was early in Nebraska's tenure. And they go to visit a kid, and the entire family's at the house, but it's just him, the kid, mom, and Bo and Carl sitting in a room. And in the room next door, like all the uncles, and I use that like as a loose term, the uncles, I'll just leave it at that. They're all in the next room, apparently loudly watching porn together.
Jeez.
In the room next to like on the big screen. And Bo and Carl are trying to have a recruiting visit while they're just loudly hearing moaning from the other.
Oh, jeez.
Watching porn. And Bo flies back. Is like, yeah, I don't care to ever go back down there.
God.
But Carl's like, how about the surround sound?
Oh my God.
Theater quality.
I think that story is made even better, Elijah, that Carl was on the trip.
I'm going to go talk to the uncles for a little while.
Yeah.
be back in 20 minutes.
Wow.
Whew. There's a lot of ways to go there. So,
who takes more snaps at Nebraska? TJ Lateef, Dayton Raiola, or Trey Taylor in their career?
well, Sharp, do you think he reclassifies? I asked Vogel this.
You know what? Someone brought that up yesterday. I mean, it makes it kind of interesting, doesn't it? If he does,
it kind of eliminates having to hang on for 19 months, doesn't it?
yeah, I think if you're Nebraska, you would love it, but make it kind of interesting with 2 high school quarterbacks in the class of 26.
Well, let me ask you this: if you've got the opportunity to get both, and they're spaced out right now, not to take the Raiolas for granted. That said, if Dayton's in because uncle's here, brother's here, dad loves it, things are going well in 2025, the guy won't leave, theoretically, would he?
I don't think so.
I mean, do you have a situation where in 2026 you take 2 quarterbacks because Trey reclassifies, they compete, and then someone wins the job and the one not named Raiola, maybe he wins the job. Does the Raiola leave? I mean, the word I get on Dayton is, as a lefty, I mean, the sky's the limit for him as well.
Yeah.
And I'm not just blowing smoke here to blow smoke. I think a couple of people I talked to that have been around football a long time say that he could be better than maybe what you got.
No, you're hearing correctly. Wouldn't it be a good thing though? Like, I don't sleep on TJ Lateef.
No, I think he can be big time.
This whole discussion it's great. Nebraska is very fortunate to have a solid number 1. And I think there's a big gap between the number one quarterback in Nebraska and the number 2 quarterback. And you just need 2 guys that just need to play football behind him. But don't sleep on Lateef. But wouldn't it be like, that somebody's going to transfer? Not everybody's going to stay. But wouldn't it be a good sign if guys did leave? Because that means your number 1 is pretty solid.
Yeah.
And that number 2 or number 3 doesn't see a path to extended playing time because number 1 is so good.
That would be good. The want also for that room is you've got such a good quarterback coach / offensive coordinator setup that if I stay, I'm eventually going to play. And when I play, I will kill it and I'll get to play on Sundays.
Yeah.
That's pipe dream right now in today's era of college football, but maybe Nebraska can have the Arch Manning situation where guys just either are paid to stay, don't want to leave, or they like being a part of a winning program. So I'll wait my turn. I'll take my time and I'll get better. I mean, that's ideally what you want.
It is amazing that we are all thinking the same thing, that Nebraska has 3 solid recruits coming in each of the next 3 years, and somebody is not going to be here. At least one of them is not going to be here. And you're right about Dayton Raiola. They really like him. He's not just a recruit because, well, we got to take him because we took Big Brother. They do like him and do see a future with him. But yeah, you're excited about Trey Taylor, and people are thinking, well, is he actually going to make it to campus? And if he makes it to campus, how long does one of the other ones stick around? That's just the era that we're in right now.
No, it is.
Who's already looking for the exit after what, Thursday or Tuesday, whenever he made the announcement, right? That's what we're thinking.
And right now, as it sits, say it doesn't happen or pan out, you can always go to the portal and get your quarterback.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, I believe that you should get 2 quarterbacks every year, and you know that they're going to transfer. One of them's going to transfer, but maybe you get a high school kid every year and you get a portal kid every year, and you just do that. I mean, the top of the food chain is Nebraska, and it's kudos to Nebraska. They've been able to recruit high-level quarterbacks. They can't recruit high-level running backs consistently, but all of a sudden they're on a nice little run of quarterbacks. Is the most important thing of the whole quarterback room is the guy that currently is there has to get drafted
and play well.
Yeah, I mean, do with the natural growth of year number 2, do what he's got to do, but get drafted because, I mean, Tanner Lee should not be the last Nebraska quarterback to be drafted, okay? Or to be the only quarterback in what, Bill, 30 years?
Yeah, I think it was Ed Burns, Bruce Matheson, Tanner Lee.
I mean, Nebraska needs Dylan Raiola to get to the point where he gets drafted. Now, they also probably
can we take that a step further and say he's got to be a guy who gets drafted in the first round?
That means good things.
I mean, it would mean great things. Yeah,
it means likely team success, and that's why I say it less for his sake and more for the fact that if you're a first-round quarterback, it means if you have played that well with what Nebraska's invested in the portal, it means likely team success. I shouldn't say 100% team success, but that's likely what it means.
And also, hey, Dylan, if you could do this in the next 2 years so you don't stay for a fourth. Okay, because that would really screw things up.
Because you hand off the baton.
Yeah.
Hand off the baton of 10 wins and playoff contention. And just here's the to-do list, son.
But don't you guys think it's important to have, because you used a great phrase, Schmitty, hand off the baton. Like Frazier handed off the baton to Scott Frost. And it was choppy the first year, but they won a national title in 97. He handed off the baton to Crouch and Newcomb and even Monte Cristo. Crouch handed off the baton to Jamal Lord. If you look at, I mean, Adrian Martinez handed off the baton to Casey Thompson, who handed off the baton to Jeff Sims. I think it's important.
Jeff dropped it.
Who dropped it?
That was so wrong.
But I do think
that one up.
I think as you build your quarterback room, it's important. Like if you get the quarterback you like, and they like Dylan, and he does Dylan things, and you feel good. Like you can't have a drop off. So that's why it's pretty impressive that Rule, Dana, and then Glenn Thomas with Lateef and Trey Taylor has done a really good job recruiting. That it looks like when Dylan's time is done here, he's going to hand the baton off, and you feel real good about who you have. Because look in the Big Ten, I think there's 11 teams that know who their quarterback is going into this upcoming year. There are 7 that are still trying to decide. So if you know every year who your quarterback is, I mean, think about it, guys. If Nebraska didn't know who their quarterback was going into this year, you'd be like, okay, what's going on here? Especially after a very quiet spring.
Let me ask you this, as we'll wind it down. I know Elijah's got baseball to hit. Gary Sharp with us. Bill Doleman.
Who's playing today, Elijah?
Oh, well, you missed out early in the show. My games late last night after I'd gotten to bed for today were canceled, so I got moved to different games today that are even sooner than the ones before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think the case with the first game was it did not matter for seeding. With the Class B and C districts are already set, so I think it did not matter. And they said, "What's the point of playing today?" And they canceled last night.
Hey, are you going to get a district game?
I am. Yeah, I'm still awaiting which district I get, which might tell
Congratulations.
Which class I'm in. But yeah, awaiting it. I have been selected though.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is good. I got to ask. Also, subscribe the Average Joe Sports Show YouTube. Spotify, iTunes, weekend show today, and then Sunday live tomorrow, 10:30. So when we talk about quarterback factories and coaches that put guys into the league, you got Lincoln Riley at SC/Oklahoma. You've got Brom, Purdue, and Louisville. You've got Sark with what he's done in his different spots. Clemson has had a pretty good run of quarterbacks that go to the NFL, and I know that shifted a bit, but it's been Dabo there. Can Nebraska move into that neighborhood? Do they have to move into Oregon as well, right? With quarterbacks the last 10 years. Nebraska's kind of got to move into that neighborhood of teams that gets quarterbacks and produces quarterbacks, don't you think? I mean, that's tied to their hip at success, I would think.
Given the offense that they're running now, if you go back to the 80s and 90s, you were recruiting option quarterbacks and great athletes and glorified running backs who could throw the ball 15 times a game rather efficiently. So, yeah, if you're going to play the same kind of game that everybody's playing these days, which is pro style, RPO, all that stuff, you got to have, the quarterbacks who are going to be competitive in that realm. Nebraska's not doing anything differently anymore like they did for all those years. Now they're doing what everybody else does. So you got to get the quarterback to compete at that level, especially in the conferences that the conference you are now in. And as we learned last week, boys and girls, this is what the quarterback hierarchy means in the NFL draft. First round quarterbacks are going to make a difference and expected to be the starters in the face of the franchise. You don't draft a difference making quarterback in rounds 2 and 3, and you draft your backups 4, 5, 6, and 7. That's what we learned last week, right? So if Dylan Raiola goes in the second or third round, that must mean he's probably going to be a backup. First rounder, face of the franchise.
I like this. I just reeled off some coaches that are known for quarterback production. Dana's part of that group as well, with their time together. And you look at his association with Kevin Sumlin. Kevin Sumlin has put a bunch of quarterbacks in the league. So is Dana. So Nebraska's in that situation, which is nice because Dana's got his share of guys that have gone into the league and stuck in the league. And now can you combine that tutoring with the talent you bring in and really elevate? Same with Bama.
Yeah, isn't it wild, guys? Because we started talking about running backs, is a place that, and it is a priority on who's coaching them and how you recruit them. That Nebraska is on a better run at the quarterback position than they are at the running back position.
Absolutely.
Where 25, 30 years ago, if you wanted to be a running back, I mean, you went to IBAC-U.
Yeah.
And now Nebraska can't, stack top-notch running backs, but yet they're on a great run of getting quarterbacks that you go, how did Nebraska get him? And I don't know if we're making quarterback a priority because it has to be, and running back will just fill it in, or it's just the revolving door of position coaches that have been at running back over a couple of different staffs. I don't know. It's just strange. It's weird to have a shift like that. But Bill, you're right. The offense changing where it's not so quarterback centric, but quarterback important, I think also plays a factor in attracting quarterbacks that give Nebraska a second look when in the past they were like, I don't know.
You get stability at quarterback. It sets up your whole offense, period. Line recruiting or development, running back options. And of course, we've all talked about comfort level of different position groups. I think we're all pretty comfortable with the wide receivers they brought in.
Are we at the point for years and years at Nebraska? It was you ran the ball because you could, you threw the ball if you had to. Has that flipped now? Is it you throw the ball because you can and you're going to have to run the ball because it's the Big Ten and you have to run the football and it also opens up some things in the run? Has that mantra of Nebraska flipped? And I mean, it's kind of flipped in football generally, but is it flipped at Nebraska now?
Yeah, because you've transitioned away from what was the offense for decades. Push comes to shove, you are going to have to stop the run. Push comes to shove, you're going to have to be able to run the football, period. As good as your quarterback is, good as your wide receiver room is, your offensive line, you are going to need to go do what Nebraska did to finish out the Pinstripe Bowl on 4th and 1 and run some power and get the first down and burn the clock. That's going to have to happen. That does happen in the Big Ten. So, Sharpie, weekend looks like what? You're going to go win some money later today on the Derby, and we'll holler manana?
Hopefully I'll win some money on the Derby. Hey, journalism needs a win, and then it needs a win at Kentucky Derby. But the showers are going to worry me a little bit. There are a couple of horses that are better in the mud, but journalism is, if it's a good track and journalism gets around the first turn with that California speed, he may just, I know you're not going to win money off of him because he's such a dominant favorite, but man, he's an impressive horse.
Right.
I texted my buddy during the show, Jacob, who's going to be there, and said, how's the infield going to be today? And he said, probably a mud fest.
Okay.
Just think of all the viral videos and pictures that we're going to see in nudity.
Well, I was thinking more of
the
old SUV horse making his way through the mud today. Tuck is asking Kranak, his assignment is U12 baseball today, a tournament, a doubleheader. So Kranak is there. Elijah's headed off to the Diamond. Billy D, appreciate you.
Just
Sharpie, thank you much.
Praying for no euthanasia today on the track.
Wow.
Wow.
It's reality.
Is that a horse?
I know, but you can just privately think that.
Naming a horse euthanasia would be wild.
Wow.
Do you think that would get past the committee that signs off on what a horse can be called?
What if it's youth in Asia as opposed to euthanasia? Could work.
No.
Just name him Needles. I mean,
Oh, okay. Happy talk.
Yes.
Hey, happy talk would be I would name my horse Peanut Butter Jelly Time.
Okay.
Well, we discussed this yesterday. What's your Husker themed Kentucky Derby horse name?
Man, Woman, and Child.
That's my pick too. I love that.
I went with Fumblerooski.
There has to be somebody after the great Lyle Bremser at Exarban racetrack that had a horse named Man, Woman, and Child. Yeah. Thanks, Brendan.
Yeah.
All right. With that,
Brendan made it. Brendan made it.
We will check in tomorrow for Sunday Live on the Average Joe Sports Show. Appreciate you tuning in. Like and subscribe to YouTube, the Average Joe Sports Show, AJ Sports Radio. And we'll be back at you tomorrow, 10:30 on YouTube with the Average Joes. Thanks to Bill Doleman, Gary Sharp, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Talk to you manana.